We're going north of the border today, where the Blue Jays are not panicking. But should they be?
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. There's my lower third. I've been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now, and this is now my sixth full season as a host of the Locked On Podcast Network. Catch me 5 days a week here in Locked On MLB, and also 5 days a week hosting Locked On A's. That's right. You get 10 episodes with me a day. It's just that good. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever it's called now, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully, but Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And today's show is brought to you by SupplyHouse.com. Supply House is the reliable way to get parts fast. Shop for your next plumbing, h-vac, and electrical job, and get fast shipping from coast to coast and maybe up north at SupplyHouse.com. Well, as I've alluded to, we have guests today. I've talked a lot about the Toronto Blue Jays, and instead of just having me yap about it, I've only been to Toronto once in my life. Let's bring in the hosts, the terrific two new hosts, or relatively new hosts, of Locked On Blue Jays. It's Brayden, Ewasko, and Carter Fuerst. How you doing, fellas?
Doing great. Excited to be here. First time on Locked On MLB. Ready to roll.
Well, I got to say, I've been listening to your show. We've had, sadly, we've had kind of a rotation. We miss you, AJ. We've had a rotation of Blue Jays hosts over the last few years. I love what you two are doing. I think you two are doing a great show, and you're capturing some of the angst, the north of the border angst that I'm sure you're probably feeling. But if you're not all listening to the show, it's a really good listen, and so check it out.
Yeah, it's just been a part of the roller coaster that the Toronto Blue Jays bring you every single day, it seems like. We have such high expectations for this team, and they just continue to fail to meet those expectations. But the problem with the Toronto Blue Jays is that they could be 162-0, or they can go 0-162, and I'm going to watch every game anyway. Just a part of the roller coaster, a part of the brand. We're excited to do this all the time, provide content for you guys. And it's just two dudes talking about baseball like you do with your buddies on the couch, with your family, anytime like that. So it's awesome that we can spread our content and spread our fandom this way.
By the way, let's go quickly do the trivia question. I talked about Eric Davis in the last episode, and I said Eric Davis, the wonderful Eric Davis, who was a big player in my youth, who sadly injuries derailed what was probably going to be a Hall of Fame career. He was at his peak in his powers in the mid-1980s when he struck out in a game, and he was that veteran pitcher's 4,000th strikeout. And I said, what pitcher recorded their 4,000th strikeout with striking out Eric Davis? Now, Stephen Colatera got the question wrong. He said Tom Seaver. But Argonaut Comedy on Twitter, or whatever it's called now, got the answer right. He struck out with the pitcher being Steve Carlton. Steve Carlton became just the second or third person ever to get 4,000 strikeouts at that time. He was a member of the San Francisco Giants, and I think he only pitched 3 or 4 games with the Giants, but managed to sneak in his 4,000th strikeout there. It's kind of like Pete Rose was in Expo for about an hour and a half, but he got his 4,000th hit as a member of the Montreal Expos. Things are weird. I'm old enough to remember when the Blue Jays were the World Series champions. I'm old enough to remember when they played in Exhibition Stadium and had the single greatest outfield to not play in the World Series, with George Bell, Lloyd Mosby, and with Jesse Barfield. But this is not about talking about the past. This is talking about the present. And quite frankly, I find the Blue Jays to be one of the most bewildering, weird teams in all of baseball. And I want to talk about that a little bit. First, let's talk about today's game, or Sunday. They held on. The final score was Blue Jays 4, Blue Jays 5, Rowdy Tellez 4. Former Blue Jay Rowdy Tellez drove in all 4 Pirates runs in a very weird game. Tell me what you think about the game and your thoughts on the series with Pittsburgh that just ended.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, when we look at this series, for me, this means nothing. This means absolutely nothing. The White Sox series means nothing. It's great that they got the sweep there, but it means nothing. Until this team can prove that they can beat good baseball teams, this all means nothing. We can get a 10-1 win. We could lose by 7 runs. This means absolutely nothing to me. It's going to be when we start playing the Orioles and the Yankees and those teams, that's the games that are going to really matter. Right now, I mean, this team is just hopefully going to get wins to keep around 500, which they haven't failed to so far this season.
Yeah, you look at the opposing team's pitching, Bailey Falter in game 1 and then Mitch Keller in game 2. This team just has a very hard time hitting against good pitching. So then you got the O's coming up for a 4-game set. You're going to see Corbin Burns. You're going to see Grayson Rodriguez. So if they can score runs on those pitchers, that's when I'm going to start getting more excited about this baseball team. But again, it is nice to get a series win. It's first series win that's not against the Chicago White Sox in over a month. So you got to take that there. 5 out of 6. This team is 2 games below 500. But now we kind of get into a gauntlet schedule. You got the Baltimore Orioles, then you have your Oakland Athletics coming up after that. But then it's the Brewers, Red Sox, Guardians, Red Sox. You name it. Keep on going. It doesn't get any easier for this baseball team. And we were hoping that this team could be at 500 after this Pirate series. We were really hoping for a sweep, but you do get the series win. We just need these expectations to hopefully be met by this hitting order. And one thing that I love that finally John Schneider is starting to make a few good decisions here, and he's allowing Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to play third. That's going to be interesting defensively, but he's allowing these hitters to get your best 9 hitters into the ballgame to produce offense that this team so drastically needs.
Yeah, but first of all, I think Brayden, tough crowd here. I think when you're trying to get to 500, you have to win every game you can. And the way you turn things around is, I mean, imagine your thought if they wound up losing this series to Pittsburgh or to Chicago. I mean, it does mean something, because if you're going to be a playoff team, then you've got to beat the snot out of the bad teams and hold your own with the good teams. It's a 2-pronged thing. I can't tell you how many times, like, my father, may rest in peace, was the greatest San Francisco Giant fan of all time. And even though towards the end of his life, he saw them win 3 World Series titles, he still was angry about 1993, where they won 103 games and missed the playoffs by 1 game, and they lost a bunch of games to the expansion Colorado Rockies. Those head-to-head games with the Braves that year were intense, but you got to win those games right there. I mean, the 78 Red Sox, who lost the Bucky Dent game, lost a bunch of games to the expansion Seattle Mariners. If just one of those games went otherwise, the Bucky Dent day doesn't take place. So, this is a team that's trying to climb back. You've got to show up for Pittsburgh. If they had lost that series today, and they were very close to doing that, this is not good.
Yeah, I totally understand that, and I do agree. But in the same token, I think the expectation for this baseball team is to be a World Series champion, not to scrape by at 500. And I think that was what has been built up for 7-8 years now, that this team would eventually be at this point. And now we're not even seeing a glimpse of that. And that's what I mean in the sense of, I think as fans, Blue Jays fans, they all expect to be competing with the Yankees and the Orioles, and that's just not even in the question right now.
Well, look at Carter, Brayden, let's take a pause for a little bit, because I want to get into that. I want to really roll up our sleeves for a second here, because there are some philosophical questions. Forget, are they better than the Pirates? Are they better than Chicago? There's philosophical questions that the Blue Jays cannot avoid, even though in some of the recent interviews, it sounds like they are doing their best to kick it down the road. Let's hear from our friends over at supplyhouse.com. Get supplies from the site that's made for skilled trades, supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com is a reliable way to order plumbing, h-vac, electrical products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product information to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts. Really? I didn't even realize there were 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need an order? Get experts support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business. And guess what? You're going to talk to a real person every time. That's worth using it just for that. Pros of the skill trade can get competitive edge by joining SupplyHouse.com's free trade master program. Easy for you to say. Every trade master gets access to a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from the free membership at SupplyHouse.com/TM and order plumbing, h-vac, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at where? SupplyHouse.com. Sing that song with me. SupplyHouse.com. Now, I don't know where you're getting your sports news these days. I don't know where you're getting all your best takes. But let me tell you, I think you should make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming service program to bring you the biggest sports stories out there. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, news, streaming 24/7, and even longer than that on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Brayden and Carter from Locked On Blue Jays are here. I'm going to let you guys, I'm going to set you guys free in a second. I'm going to set you up with my thoughts, and I want to know your thoughts. Since really the COVID year, we've seen that there's been a buildup that's been supposed to be happening. The Blue Jays have a core of stars. Most of them descended from good players. Why they didn't include them in the Field of Dreams game where you see the sons on the field cut to the fathers in the stands. I mean, come on. Have Vlad Sr. and Jr. have a catch in the cornfield. But I digress. And they play in the COVID season in Buffalo. In 2021, down the stretch, they were probably the best team in the AL East, but it was down the stretch, and they lost that critical game to the Yankees. And they wound up finishing fourth in an unbelievably deep division. And then they make the playoffs the last couple of years and won as many games as I have. And they got rid of Montoyo. Schneider got him there. And after he lost that playoff series to Seattle, I remember turning to my friend and said, well, he better update his resume because Schneider was just there as an interim manager. There are a lot of good managerial candidates out there. I thought there's a better chance that you two would be the manager of the Blue Jays than John Schneider. But here we are. And the team is now talking about trading away their core players. And Schneider's still the manager, even though last year they wet the bed in the playoffs against Minnesota. I think they need to make a managerial change before they blow the team up, because maybe, just maybe, that's the kick in the pants that this team needs. But you've forgotten more about the Blue Jays than I'll ever know, so I'll let you discuss.
Well, Carter, I mean, we've had this talk about a million times, and I think we'll probably have it a million more before the Blue Jays decide to make a decision here. The biggest part of this all for me is we look back at Charlie Montoyo, and the team didn't play well under him. They did, but they didn't. He had no control of the team. It just looked like he was out there having fun. He might as well have thrown the baseball around with them. Then they go to John Schneider, and he has made some bonehead decisions, to say the least. There has been multiple that we've continued to break down, even going into this season, and not moving George Springer from the one spot after he has probably the worst start to a season you'd expect from a player like George Springer. Then he finally moves Davis Schneider up to that leadoff spot, which is a great thing to do, but it's
no relation. No relation, by the way. No relation.
No, we won't slander Davis Schneider like that. But it was a great decision. And I think if you look back, I don't know if it was Carter, maybe you remember, podcast episode, I don't know for us what it was, like a month in, maybe less,
something like that
we said to make the move. And then we waited and we waited and we waited until we had to. I think me and you did 3 different episodes where we tried to figure out what to do with this lineup. And it always came back to moving George Springer. And now we look at the team and it still doesn't seem to be helping because this team can't hit the long ball. And that's the biggest component. They can't score runs. And yes, you can look back at certain games and they do put up a 9 spot or a 5, but it's just not consistent enough. And our biggest thing was consistency with this team. And John Schneider seems to not be able to find consistency. If that's moving guys out of the lineup when they're on a 2-game, they're having 2 really good games. And then instead of leaving them in the lineup for that 3rd game, he pulls them and sits them on the bench time after time after time. And it's so frustrating watching, because me and Carter sitting on the couch, just like today, watching the game, when you see he gives Daniel Vogelbach more playing time after today's game, the Sunday game, and it works out well. He generates runs. That's what you need. But then probably he'll go back next game and he'll have Daniel Vogelbach sitting on the bench. And Carter, I know I'm going to talk about this, we're probably going to have this conversation again and again and again. It's playing the hot hand. John Schneider is not the guy to ever play the hot hand. It's just whatever he comes up with on the day in his head, it seems like.
Well, I'm just looking at Daniel Vogelbach. This guy's hitting 375 over his last 7 games, an OBP of 412. He's a guy that is hot right now, and you want this guy in the lineup. And just looking back with John Schneider, just the biggest thing that sticks out in my head when you talk about John Schneider bonehead decisions, obviously goes back to that Minnesota Twins game where you have Jose Barrios absolutely dealing debatably his best start of the entire season.
Yeah.
And they decide to pull him out and put Yusei Kikuchi in. But again, you go back to that series, he scored 1 run in 2 games. Fortunately, that's just not going to win you a series. Again, that's not going to win you a baseball game. You look at this team from a hitting perspective, and like you said, George Springer, like when all the Blue Jays fans are all together and they know that George Springer should not be hitting 1, that does not happen often. But the fact that everyone could see that is absolutely insane that it took him this long to actually make that move. And now one thing that we've been talking about recently, but now Jordan Romano is on the 15-day IL, is with how bad he's been and how good Yimi Garcia has been, is would you want to put Yimi Garcia in that closing role with Jordan Romano giving up saves? Seems like he's giving up a home run almost every single time he goes out there on the mound. So that was something that we were really dialed into. We thought Yimi Garcia should be the closer for this team just for the time being. Sort of the same thing as George Springer hitting 6-7 for the time being. If these guys can get hot again and continue to play how they normally played throughout their careers, then yes, throw them back at 1, throw them back at the closing spot. But for right now, this is what is best for the Toronto Blue Jays team, having George Springer hitting 7. And what happens when you put George Springer at 7? He hits a home run in his first at-bat. Take some of the pressure off, let him kind of build it back up and get this lineup to where it needs to be.
You made a great point about Yimi Garcia. I think at this point, it's like, why are we even having a discussion whether or not he should have it or not? First of all, Jordan Romano's a nice player. He's not Mariano Rivera. But also at this point, you can't go on and say, oh, but the legend of Jordan Romano lives on. No, you're trying to get Brayden, you were bringing up the fact that you weren't giving him credit for, doing well against Chicago and Pittsburgh. You can't be worried about people's feelings.
No.
I remember when Schneider took the job over from Montoyo, and they wound up playing well. They wound up getting to the series against Seattle. And we all know what happened. That second game against Seattle is going to be on every montage of biggest playoff collapses of all time. And again, that's when I said to my friend, well, he was an interim. They decided to give it to the end and, don't change your manager again. But now they got to go get a manager. And I got the sense that he was the manager because he worked with some of the players in the minor leagues. So like, oh, he's my, I know him, but clearly he's no longer the Vlad whisperer. He's no longer, if this is, you have to go in a different direction. I don't care if you don't want to fire John Schneider, then create a role in the front office. Like he's the vice president of Beans and Franks and Beans. They do that all the time where they promote, he's being promoted to the front office instead of firing the dude. And I'm not a huge Don Mattingly as a manager fan. However, sometimes having a manager who, by the way, was the manager of the year in 2020 and has managed in the postseason, and sometimes just the shift of a new manager will sometimes jolt the team into, oh, we better get on our butts here. There's too much talent on this team to be looking at, well, a third of the season is done. And this is the period of time where you have to figure out what are we until the trade deadline in 2 months. And if the fact that they're even whispering, well, we could trade Bichette and Guerrero and start again, while still having Schneider have the car keys, to me is absolutely insane. Give Mattingly a shot at this point.
Yeah, the crazy part is that we're hearing rumors of Vlad talks to be traded, as Bo talks to be traded, whatever it is. But then we also hear talk of them wanting to sign a guy like Ryan McMahon. And so we're like, what direction?
Which is it?
Yeah. And it's just mind-boggling because we see that probably the solution here, but it seems like they're getting their wires all kinds of twisted. And how John Schneider still has a job at this point is beyond me. And we talked about the fact that he was in with the players. He was the players' manager, and that's why he was given this position. He's got an insight into them, and that's great. Coming off of building these guys up like he did, fair enough if you want to say that. But it's been too long now. Right. There's been no success. There has to be a change.
And Brayden, I'll get to you in a second here, Carter, but I just want to jump in. If their expectations were where they were like expected to be, near the bottom of the standings, if they were the Rockies, and they had these young players, and this is a rebuilding year, fine. No, this should be year 3 of okay, now it's all fitting together, as opposed to now we got to blow it up. And Ross Atkins today went on to say, "Oh, I don't think I'm going to trade them," which means he's totally going to trade them. And he said, and Schneider's doing a heck of a job. Really, he used a superlative when he was talking about Schneider. Like he said, he's doing an amazing job or something. And I'm like, are we watching different games? Atkins. This is from MLB.com, and I'm an article written by Keegan Matheson, and he quotes Atkins, GM of the Blue Jays, saying, "Atkins threw his support behind John Schneider, calling his work incredible."
Yeah, I don't know what is so incredible. I don't know what is so incredible about a 27-29 start. But with Ross Atkins, this whole situation, Ross Atkins was the first one to throw John Schneider under the bus when that Jose Barrios move was pulled. And now he's going back and saying that he's doing an incredible job. Again, pick a direction here. Which one is it? You can't have it both ways. And this team, like you said, has the 8th highest payroll in baseball right now. Mm-hmm. If you were the Colorado Rockies, you were the Chicago White Sox, you kind of know you have a direction. You know how the team's going to be. With the Jays right now, we don't know if we're going to be buyers or sellers at the deadline, which is absolutely insane. And you look at this team was built on the foundation of the big 3. You got those comparisons with Dante Bichette, Vladdy Sr., and then Craig Biggio. You wanted those 3 to be the powerhouses of this team. But what result has that gotten you? Wild card banners at the Rogers Center, 0 playoff wins. It's absolutely insane how Ross Atkins and John Schneider still have jobs at this point. I think Ross Atkins knows that he is on the hot seat. He needs to get this team to the playoffs. He needs to make a big move, and I think that's why he is just trying to throw anything at the fans, just get something to stick. He's trying to save his own butt here, I think. But when you look at this roster construction as well, this team completely sold out for defense, let all the offense go with that Teo trade, Lourdes Gurriel, Dalton Varsho trade. That's going to be talked about for a very long time amongst Blue Jays fans. But it's clearly not working. It's a failed experiment. So Ross Atkins should be on the hot seat. And with John Schneider, at the end of the day, you can make all these decisions you want, but at the end of the day, he's not the one on the baseball field. These players have to play. They have to be able to hit the baseball. They have to be able to score runs. And they're just clearly not doing that right now.
Well, Carter, I'm going to address that when we get back after we talk about a little something.
Today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling against thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entries in as little as 60 seconds. So since we're on the Locked On MLB podcast today, I usually make my picks with the Toronto Blue Jays, but I decided to switch it up a little bit. I'm going for a team that is playing a little bit more of an exciting brand of baseball. So I have Bryce Harper more than 1.5 bases, and I also have Brandon Marsh more than half a base. I think that's pretty free, so that's why I'm writing that. You know which players are going to perform on specific nights. This is a no-brainer. Download PrizePicks and start making your picks today. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100.
Hey, just a quick reminder that Locked On has created the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on the YouTubes. And now it's available on the Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channel app. Locked On Sports Day is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channel app. We're here with Carter and with Ryan, Brayden. I know someone named Ryan Ewasko, and so my head pulled a Stargate and sort of lined it up incorrectly there. So forgive me on there. As I said, I'm old enough to remember when the Blue Jays won back-to-back World Series. I also remember in 1991, they went to the playoffs that year. Do you know what they also did that year in 1991? They became the first team ever to draw 4 million fans. Last year, the Blue Jays drew 3 million fans. They drew 3 million fans in 2017 and 2016. They nearly did in 2015. This is not a small market team. This is freaking Toronto. First of all, they have all of Canada rooting for them ever since the Expos were stolen. And so in terms of, people say, well, Boston has all of New England. Well, Chicago has the tri-state region. Canada! Right up to the Northwest Territories where, you got the dog sled on going, I hope Vladdy gets a homer. So this is not a small market team with a small market budget. And I'm sorry, they should be one of the big, they certainly have the fan base, and we've all seen when the Blue Jays are kicking, the Rogers Center is not a good baseball place. It's a phenomenal baseball place. And I only went there once when it was called Sky Dome. At the time, and when I was there, they had players like Robbie Alomar, Joe Carter, and Paul Molitor. But when they had Batista and Encarnacion and Josh Donaldson, it was, to use a technical term, hopping. And now with Vladdy and everyone else, when it's packed, I don't have to tell you guys, it's a pretty amazing place to see a baseball game. So, and they're acting like they're a small market team. And that drives me nothing short of bananas. I say, give Joe Madden a call. Did he become an idiot? No.
It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. We were there, what was that, two weekends ago, Carter?
Yeah.
Two weekends ago. And it was, this fan base wants a team to rally around. They want to love baseball. And they pick their guys every year that they get behind. This year, of course, it's Davis Schneider. He is absolutely electric to watch. The walk-up song, the way he plays baseball is immaculate. I actually just got the jersey. I'm wearing it right now. Davis Schneider, my favorite player as well. And I was a Josh Donaldson fan. Very different brand of baseball compared to what we're watching now. And this team, or this fan base, loves to get behind their team, and they will support their team if they're terrible or if they're great. And that might be part of the problem, is that they will never see a drop in tickets because the fans are so stable. They're never going to leave. Mm-hmm. And I think Rogers knows that. I think they know that these fans are going to show up no matter what, which is great. As a nation, it's fantastic. It's fantastic to have that one team, everyone together. But in this case, it's not good because now we're a terrible, I don't want to say this, but we're a terrible baseball team, and we shouldn't be a terrible baseball team. They just don't want to put in the effort.
Be a pennant winner. This is the AL. There's no one great team in the AL, especially with Houston slumping. Carter, thoughts?
Yeah, they call it the AL Beast for a reason. It doesn't get any easier. You got the Baltimore Orioles, who have one of the best farm systems in the league. The New York Yankees are always going to be good with their payroll. Boston's kind of in a weird situation, and then the Rays are always... They're
going to be good in a year or so. They're going to be good. They have some good young players. In a couple of years, they'll be okay.
I don't. When you talk about Boston, I just don't know why they gave up Mookie Betts for nothing. Clearly, that front office is making a bunch of mistakes as well. And the Rays are always underrated. They're always a team that gives the Toronto Blue Jays trouble. And when you look at this team from their free agency, they were in on Shohei Ohtani. They were willing to give this guy $700 million in the offseason. And your major signing of the offseason is 39-year-old Justin Turner, who did start hot, but he has been one of the worst hitters I've seen with my two eyes over the last month. And then you get IKF, who is another signing that I didn't like, honestly, at the time, but he's been one of the best hitters on this baseball team. So you have such a huge market. You have fans, like Brayden said, that want this team to be good, that will rally behind this team. And you go back to the 2015 years, especially like my favorite memory of the Toronto Blue Jays is the Jose Bautista bat flip. That place was an electric factory. It was insane how loud it was. This team can be so good. On paper, they look so good. They just haven't put it together. And it seems like in every single direction, every facet of the game just isn't working. When you look at the front office, you look to coaching, the managers, and then the product on the field. It is a frustrating baseball team to watch because we had all this expectation. Hey, this is going to be a World Series pennant winning team. We have World Series aspirations. And what if we got absolutely zero playoff wins?
Yeah,
it's terrible, to say the least.
And then you think about in 16, when you had the Encarnacion walk-off home run against Baltimore, and then you had that weird play where Donaldson comes racing home on the, I guess it was an error. It was just a weird, it was like the end of a Benny Hill episode where everything was running around, and suddenly Donaldson slides home with the winning run against a underrated Texas team. That was actually a very good Texas team that no one remembers. If you go back and you watch those two events, the Encarnacion home and Donaldson sliding head first, the screams you hear from that crowd, the intensity you hear from that crowd, and that it's all around. And I don't want them to move out of Rogers Center, because when you're there, I get the memories of Joe Carter. I get the memories of, Tom Henke and Robbie Alomar, and going back to George Bell. I mean, it still stays alive there, and there's a connection, and that's important. But Toronto should be contending for a World Series title this year, not saying, well, maybe we'll get a decent prospect for Vladdy. There was no one more perfect to be a star in Canada than the son of Vladimir Guerrero. That's absolutely bananas. And yet here we are. What do you think? What do you think they're going to do? Tell me what you think they're going to do.
Well, if I was to put a bet on it, I don't think they're doing anything. I think they're going to stand pat and disappoint the fans once again. It's the writing is on the wall.
Hold on, I got to go to FanDuel and put that in. I got to go to FanDuel and put that in right here.
Standing pat on FanDuel, yeah.
Oh, God.
No, it's painful. And the writing's on the wall because of the flip-flopping and the back and forth. And nobody has a clue what's going on. Are we trading Bo and Vlad? Are we signing? Are we going to trade for Ryan McMahon? Are we going to get some other guys? Are we going to blow everything up and just keep Davis Schneider and play him at all 9 positions? Who knows? We are lost. The front office is lost. The managing is lost. The players are lost. It's great to see Vlad starting to pick it up. Over the last, he had a rough start to the season, but he's really picked it up. But he's not hitting for the power. And that's why you have Vlad, is to hit 30 home runs and, get the fans excited. He is supposed to be that guy. And he's just not. And it is so painful. Oh.
Carter, final thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Brayden. This team has just shown multiple times that it just doesn't do anything. You look at this offseason, their big signings, Justin Turner. With John Schneider, he could play Daniel Vogelbach in center field and he'd probably still be fine. His job would be protected, is what it seems like. This guy has made bonehead decisions time and time again with no repercussions. And you look at Ross Atkins. Ross Atkins just not inclined to make a big move. So you're going to look at this team. It's going to go down the stretch, and they're just going to be mediocre. That's where this team stands for me right now. You look at the last 8 years, you haven't gotten a playoff win. You've gotten wild card berths a few times. The last time this team won the division was in 2015. It's so hard to watch because there's so much expectation. We want this team to be good so bad, and it's just not. So again, you can look at the trade deadline. Is a guy like Ryan McMahon going to switch up this team and be the thing that puts this team over the top? No, it's not. You need your stars to perform. You need Vladdy. You need Bo. You need the guys that have been in your system for all these years to come up in big spots. Show this team, show the fans that they can actually play good baseball and put it all together. I guess it's going to be a wait and see game, but I'm tired of waiting, to be honest. I want something to change, and it has to happen now. We're a third of the way into the season. We're still 2 games below 500, and the gauntlet is approaching. So we need some wins. We need to string a huge winning streak together if we want even a chance to contend for the playoffs, to be honest.
Well, Carter Fuerst and Brayden Ewasko are the hosts of Locked On Blue Jays. They're the terrific new hosts. The show is great. You can tell you two are two friends who just love talking Blue Jays, and we just happen to be eavesdropping on your conversations. One of the reasons why I find the show to be really great. Some people have to invent their chemistry, but you guys clearly hate each other, and that's really one of the things that makes it really work here. Tell people where they can listen to your terrific show.
Yeah, you can find us at on YouTube and any other place you listen to your podcast at Locked On Blue Jays. As well, you can find us. We do YouTube shorts. We do Instagram Reels. We do TikToks, all at Locked On Blue Jays. You can find us on our Twitters, Brayden 5 Ewasko, Carter Fuerst 2. And yeah, we just pump out content because literally this is all we do all day long is talk Blue Jays. So we might as well just keep putting everything out there.
All right, well, let's throw the trivia question out there. We'll make it Blue Jays related. I'm sure you guys know this, but I'm throwing it out to my fans here. Simple question. Who was the first Blue Jay All-Star? Put that down here in the YouTubes. Got to put down there. And at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Going north and hearing the strife of being a Blue Jays fan with Carter Fuerst and Brayden Ewasko. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.